That's how many competition targets Emma Chen had hit dead center before she traded her Olympic shooting career for a quieter life in Pleasant Valley, Idaho. Now, 6 months pregnant with their first child, she spent her mornings helping her husband Michael tend to their struggling apple orchard, occasionally pausing to rest her hand on her growing belly while scanning the endless rows of trees with the same focus she once reserved for shooting ranges. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The locals saw what everyone else saw, just another young couple, trying to keep a family farm alive in changing times. They didn't notice how she still maintained her daily target practice behind the barn, how her eyes constantly tracked movement through the orchard's neat rows, or how she'd arranged their home's furniture to provide clear sightlines through every window. Pleasant Valley had lived up to its name for the 5 years since Emma and Michael bought the struggling orchard. The small farming community tucked between rolling hills and dense forest had welcomed them warmly, especially after learning Michael had grown up on a farm 2 counties over. Emma's background raised more eyebrows. A Chinese-American Olympic shooter who'd walked away from sponsorship deals and a promising coaching career to become a farmer's wife. But her quiet competence and genuine love for their new life soon won over even the most skeptical neighbors. The first hint that their peaceful life might be changing came on an unusually warm spring morning. Emma was checking the irrigation lines in the eastern orchard, practicing movements carefully to accommodate her growing belly, when she spotted unfamiliar tire tracks cutting through their fresh-tilled soil. Deep treads, wide wheelbase, definitely not typical farm equipment. "Someone's been scouting the property," she told Michael over lunch, her voice calm but her eyes sharp as she studied the surrounding tree line through their kitchen window. "Heavy vehicles, at least 3 different sets of tracks." Michael's weathered face showed concern as he processed this information. At 32, he'd already spent 2 decades learning the rhythms of agricultural life, understanding that sometimes the greatest threats weren't drought or frost, but people who saw farmers as easy targets. "Could be nothing," he offered, but his hand unconsciously moved to cover hers. "Logging company maybe, checking access roads." Emma's slight smile carried years of competitive shooting experience. Logging trucks follow established routes. These tracks were deliberate search patterns. Someone's looking for something. Their peaceful afternoon was interrupted by the arrival of Bill Cooper, their closest neighbor and the unofficial keeper of local gossip. The elderly farmer's usual cheerful demeanor was replaced by obvious worry as Michael met him at the door. "Thought you folks should know," Bill said without preamble. "Had some strange fellas asking questions at the diner this morning. City types, but not the usual real estate developers. These ones had prison tattoos and mean eyes." Emma appeared silently beside her husband, one hand resting protectively over her belly, while the other casually gripped the doorframe in what only the most trained observer would recognize as a shooter's stance. "What kind of questions?" she asked, her voice steady. "About which farms in the valley might be struggling with bank payments, about properties that sit empty part of the year." Bill's weathered face creased with concern. "They seemed mighty interested in your place specifically. Something about the previous owner owing debts to people you don't want to owe." Michael's arms slipped protectively around Emma's shoulders, but she remained focused on Bill. "Did they mention any names, organizations?" "Nothing direct, but one fella had a tattoo I recognized. My son's a corrections officer over in Boise. Says that particular mark belongs to the River Street Syndicate. They're not your typical criminals. More like a corporation that specializes in taking things that don't belong to them." Emma felt Michael tense beside her. The River Street Syndicate had featured in local news recently, a supposedly legitimate business group buying up distressed properties across 3 states. usually after the owners suffered mysterious accidents, or suddenly decided to sell at a fraction of market value. "Thanks for the warning, Bill," Michael said, his farmer's calluses rough against Emma's smooth shoulder. "We'll keep an eye out." After Bill left, Emma moved through their home with practiced efficiency, checking sightlines and mentally cataloguing defensive positions. The skills that had once earned her Olympic medals now focused on protecting her growing family. "Maybe we should call the sheriff," Michael suggested, watching her methodical assessment. "We will," Emma agreed, pausing at the living room window, "to study a dust cloud approaching on the main road. But first, I need to show you something." She led him to their bedroom closet, pushing aside hanging clothes to reveal a false back panel. Michael watched in silence as she opened it to display an organized collection of competition shooting gear, custom rifles, spotting scopes, and enough ammunition to supply a small army. "I didn't leave everything behind," she explained quietly. "Some skills you don't just walk away from, especially when you might need them again." Michael's expression showed no surprise, only loving concern as he touched her cheek. "You've been preparing for something like this." "I've been preparing to protect what matters," she corrected, her other hand resting on her belly. "The shooting competition circuit attracts all types. I heard things, saw patterns. Groups like the Syndicate, they target people they think are vulnerable. They see a pregnant woman on a struggling farm. They see an easy target." "Michael," he finished, his face hardened with determination. "They don't know you very well." The dust cloud resolved into 3 black SUVs moving with deliberate slowness past their property. Emma's trained eye noted the vehicle's reinforced frames and tinted windows, not the usual tourist traffic looking for a charming farm stand. "No," she agreed, her voice carrying the calm focus that had once made her one of the most promising shooting competitors of her generation. "They don't know me at all, because the men in those vehicles saw what everyone else saw. Just another young couple trying to keep a family farm alive in changing times. They didn't realize they were targeting someone who had spent years learning to hit impossibly small targets under immense pressure. Someone who understood that the most dangerous predators aren't always the ones who look threatening. Someone who had spent her entire life preparing to protect the things that truly mattered, even if she hadn't known it at the time." The SUVs completed their pass, but Emma knew this was just the beginning. The River Street Syndicate didn't make social calls. They were hunting, assessing, looking for weaknesses to exploit. But they were about to learn that some targets bite back. Michael squeezed her hand, his farmer's strength matching her shooter's. Steadiness. They had built this life together, turning a struggling orchard into a home. Now they would defend it together. Emma's hand moved to her belly, feeling their child shift beneath her heart. She had walked away from Olympic glory to build something real, something worth protecting. The Syndicate thought they saw a vulnerable target. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. The warm afternoon brought Sarah Patterson, the local veterinarian, checking on their small herd of dairy cows. Emma watched her friend's truck approach, noting how it slowed briefly when passing the fresh SUV tracks in their dirt road. "Those are new," Sarah commented as she stepped out, her medical bag in hand. Like many in Pleasant Valley, she came from a military family and noticed things others might miss. And concerning, Emma helped her carry equipment to the barn, their conversation casual, but their eyes constantly scanning. "Syndicate's been asking questions in town," she explained quietly. "About us, specifically." Sarah's expression hardened. Before becoming a vet, she'd worked as a trauma nurse in Boise. She'd seen what happened to people who crossed the River Street Syndicate. "They're expanding their territory. 3 farms in Riverdale country got burned out last month. Insurance called them accidents. Inside the barn, while examining a pregnant heifer, Sarah lowered her voice further. "My brother works private security in Boise, says the syndicate's changed. New leadership, ex-military types. They're not just thugs anymore. They use tactical, planning coordinated operations." Emma's hand instinctively moved to her belly as she processed this information. "They're probably watching us right now," she noted calmly, her shooter's training automatically identifying the best observation points around their property. "Probably," Sarah agreed, completing her examination. Then, under the pretense of checking her medical supplies, she slipped Emma a folded paper. "List of frequencies they're known to use for communications." Thought it might be useful. Their conversation was interrupted by the distant sound of motorcycles. Through the barn door, they watched 3 bikes cruise past. Expensive machines. Their riders wearing expensive leather that couldn't quite hide tactical gear underneath. "Advanced scouts," Emma observed, her competitive shooting experience translating easily to tactical assessment. Testing response times, checking approaches. Sarah's hand brushed her arm. "You're not alone in this. Pleasant Valley takes care of its own. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story." Emma smiled slightly, remembering why they'd chosen this community. It wasn't just the fertile soil or the affordable land prices. It was the people, farmers and ranchers, who understood that sometimes you had to stand together against those who would take what wasn't theirs. After Sarah left, Emma found Michael in the orchard, methodically checking their irrigation system. Their eyes met in silent communication. They both knew the stakes were rising. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, his farmer's practicality addressing the heart of the matter, "about what they might be after. The old silver mine tunnels under the North Ridge." Emma nodded. The abandoned mines had been one of the reasons they got the property so cheaply. The previous owner had lost everything trying to resurrect the mining operation. "Perfect distribution network," she agreed. "Hidden entrances, connected to 3 different valleys. Type of thing a criminal syndicate might find valuable." Michael's voice carried no fear, just calm determination. "Especially one looking to expand their territory." Emma's mind was already calculating angles, identifying defensive positions, drawing on years of competitive shooting experience. In competition, success came from understanding your terrain, knowing every factor that could affect your shot. Those same skills could now protect their home. The sun was setting when they spotted another dust cloud approaching. This time, it resolved into a sleek black Mercedes, flanked by motorcycles. The kind of arrival designed to intimidate. Emma watched through their kitchen window, one hand resting on her belly, while the other unconsciously assumed a shooter's grip. The syndicate was done with surveillance. Now, they were coming to make their play, but they were about to learn that some threats can't be measured by appearance alone. Because Emma Chen hadn't spent years becoming one of the world's best competitive shooters just to win medals, she'd been preparing, without knowing it, for exactly this moment. The black Mercedes pulled up to their farmhouse with practiced precision, its spotless finish out of place among the working vehicles in their gravel driveway. Emma noted how the motorcycles positioned themselves, one at each approach angle, riders maintaining clear sightlines. Professional work. A man emerged from the Mercedes wearing an Italian suit that probably cost more than their monthly mortgage. His immaculate appearance and practiced smile couldn't hide the predatory assessment in his eyes as he studied their home. Marcus Drake. He introduced himself smoothly as Michael met him on the porch. Representing Valley Resource Development. "Hope you don't mind the unexpected visit." Emma appeared in the doorway, one hand casually resting on the doorframe in a stance that would give her perfect coverage of the entire front yard. Her keen eyes caught the subtle bulges of concealed weapons under the motorcyclist's leather jackets. "Lovely property you have here," Drake continued, his smile never reaching his eyes. "Especially those old mining access roads on the North Ridge. Must be challenging to maintain." Michael's face remained neutral, though Emma could read the tension in his shoulders. "We manage." "Of course you do." Drake produced a business card that looked more expensive than their truck. "But times are hard for small farms. Banks get impatient. Accidents happen. We help people avoid unfortunate situations." Emma's mind calculated ranges and angles automatically, just as she had during competitions. The motorcycle on their left was 43 yards out, an easy shot. The one by the gate, maybe 65 yards, challenging with a handgun but child's play with a proper rifle. "Not interested," Michael stated firmly. Drake's smile tightened fractionally. "Everyone's interested eventually. Ask the Hendersons over in Riverdale how refusing worked out for them." The name drop wasn't random. The Henderson farm's mysterious fire had made regional news last month. Total loss, insurance claim denied. They'd sold the burned-out property for pennies on the dollar to an unnamed development company. "You should take some time to think about it," Drake continued, setting his card on their porch rail. "We'll be in touch." As the vehicles departed, Emma's trained eye caught one of the riders speaking into a concealed radio. They were coordinating with someone else, probably another team watching from the ridgeline. "They're not leaving," she noted quietly, "just changing positions." Michael nodded, his farmer's instincts aligned with her tactical assessment. "Bill mentioned strange trucks up by the old fire road last night, probably setting up observation posts." Inside, Emma moved through their home with deliberate purpose, her Olympic shooting experience translating seamlessly into defensive preparation. She noted angles, cover positions, and potential fields of fire. Their living room's large picture window, beautiful for watching sunsets, but a tactical weakness. The kitchen's breakfast nook provided excellent views of both the main road and the orchard's eastern approach. "We should call the sheriff," Michael suggested, but his tone indicated he already knew the answer. Emma shook her head. Drake wouldn't be this bold if he didn't have official channels covered. "We need to understand what we're really dealing with first." Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Just heard from my brother. Valley Resource Development is a syndicate shell company. They're moving major resources into the area. Whatever they're planning, it's big." Another message followed quickly. "Matt Wilson's feed store got torched an hour ago. He'd refused to sell them his storage facilities last week." Emma felt a baby kick as she processed this information. The syndicate was escalating faster than expected, executing a coordinated plan to take control of key properties. The old mining tunnels weren't just a convenient distribution network. They were part of something larger. Michael's phone rang, Pastor Kevin from their small community church. "Strange men asking questions at the youth group meeting," he reported, worriedly. "Taking pictures of the kids." Felt like a message. Emma's expression hardened. Threatening children crossed a line that awoke something cold and focused in her competitive shooter's mind. The syndicate thought they were being clever, applying pressure through fear and intimidation. They didn't realize they were dealing with someone who had spent years learning to perform under the most intense pressure imaginable. Olympic level. Shooting wasn't just about accuracy. It was about maintaining perfect control when everything was on the line. A truck appeared on their access road, moving too fast. Through their kitchen window, Emma recognized Jimmy Chen, no relation, from the local hardware store. The normally cheerful man looked shaken as Michael met him outside. "They're buying up water rights," Jimmy reported without preamble. "Using. Shell companies, different names, but it's them. Got the paperwork right here." He handed Michael a folder. "They're trying to control the whole valley's irrigation system." Emma studied the documents, her tactical mind seeing the strategy behind the syndicate's moves. Control the water, control the farms, force people to sell through artificial drought while maintaining plausible deniability. There's more, Jimmy added grimly. My cousin works at IT for the county assessor's office. Someone's been accessing property records, pulling files on every farm with defaulted loans or tax issues. They're making a target list. Michael's jaw tightened. Their own mortgage wasn't underwater, but last season's frost damage had forced them to refinance. The syndicate would know this. Emma felt another kick from their baby and rested her hand on her belly. The child seemed more active today, as if sensing the rising tension. She remembered the intense focus required during Olympic finals, how the whole world narrowed to just you and your target. The syndicate was using multiple pressure points, legal threats, economic warfare, intimidation, standard tactics against farmers they assumed would be easy targets. But they'd made one critical mistake. They thought they were hunting vulnerable prey. They didn't realize they were dealing with a predator who understood patience, precision, and the art of waiting for exactly the right moment to strike. A drone buzzed overhead. Small, commercial, model but equipped with a high-end camera. Emma tracked its flight path automatically. The syndicate was recording their reactions, studying their responses. They're probing our defenses, she explained to Michael, looking for weaknesses, pressure, points. Standard tactical assessment. More vehicles passed on the main road, expensive SUVs moving too slowly, motorcycles making multiple passes. The syndicate wasn't bothering to hide their surveillance anymore. They wanted to be seen, wanted their targets to feel watched. Emma's phone buzzed again. Another text from Sarah. Brother says they're using ex-military contractors for muscle, professional operators, not just street thugs. That explained the tactical precision she'd observed. The syndicate had evolved, combining criminal resources with military expertise. A dangerous combination. Through their kitchen window, Emma spotted movement in the orchard. Someone was walking their property lines, taking photos and measurements. The man's movement pattern suggested combat training. Systematic, efficient, always maintaining awareness of cover. They're mapping approaches, she noted. Her competitive shooting experience had taught her the importance of understanding every aspect of your environment. These men were doing the same, but for a darker purpose. Michael's expression showed grim understanding. Years of farming had taught him to read warning signs, in weather, in crops, in people. Everything about this situation screamed danger. Their landline rang. The bank. The loan officer's voice carried carefully crafted concern about reviewing their payment schedule. Another pressure point being squeezed. Emma moved to their bedroom, opening the hidden compartment that held her competition gear. The familiar weight of her custom rifle provided comfort as she checked it with practiced efficiency. In competition, success came from preparation, from knowing your equipment would perform perfectly when needed. The same principles applied here, but with much higher stakes than any medal. A truck stopped at their gate. Ed Thompson, their elderly neighbor. His face showed worry as he approached their porch. They're buying up grazing rights, he reported, through different companies. But it's them, trying to control every aspect of valley operations. Emma processed this information, adding it to her tactical assessment. The syndicate was implementing a sophisticated strategy, targeting not just individual farms, but the entire infrastructure that supported them. More vehicles passed their property, more drones buzzed overhead. The syndicate was tightening their net, confident in their ability to break another struggling farm family. But Emma Chen hadn't spent years becoming an Olympic-level shooter just to win competitions. Those skills, patience, precision, performing under pressure, had prepared her for something far more important, protecting her family, defending their home. The sun set over Pleasant Valley as Emma watched more syndicate vehicles pass their farm. They thought they were establishing dominance, demonstrating their power. Instead, they were revealing their patterns, showing their methods. In competition shooting, understanding your opponent's approach was often the key to victory. The same principle would apply here, but with one crucial difference. This time, the target would shoot back. Night fell over the orchard, but the darkness brought no peace. Emma's trained eye caught the faint red dots of laser rangefinders sweeping their property, professional teams mapping distances and angles. Their operation wasn't just about intimidation, they were preparing for something specific. Got some information you need to see? Sarah's voice came through a secure messaging app she'd insisted they install. A series of documents followed. Satellite images showing unusual activity in abandoned properties across 3 counties, all recently acquired by Valley Resource Development shell companies. They're building something, Sarah explained in follow-up messages. My brother's contact in county planning says they've filed permits for agricultural processing facilities at 6 different locations, all near old mine entrances. Michael studied the images with a farmer's practical eye. Those aren't processing facilities, he noted, pointing to distinctive patterns in the construction. Those are distribution centers, professional setup, heavy security. Emma's tactical mind connected the dots. The syndicate wasn't just expanding territory, they were establishing infrastructure. The old mining tunnels would connect their new facilities, creating a hidden network right under Pleasant Valley's peaceful surface. Their scanner crackled with encrypted communications, fragments of tactical chatter using military protocols. Through their kitchen window, Emma spotted more teams moving with professional precision through neighboring properties. The syndicate was coordinating something big. Her phone buzzed with another message, this time from Reverend Kevin. Just overheard at the diner, they're pressuring the county board, threatening to expose corruption unless they get expedited permits. Already have 3 commissioners in their pocket. Emma felt their baby shift as she processed this information. The syndicate's approach was comprehensive: legal pressure, tactical preparation, political manipulation. They were squeezing Pleasant Valley from every angle. A truck approached their property slowly, lights off. Emma recognized the driving pattern. Tactical reconnaissance, checking blind spots and approach vectors. These weren't ordinary criminals. They were trained operators using military-grade techniques. They're getting bolder, Michael observed, his voice carrying the calm determination that had first attracted Emma. Testing our responses, looking for patterns. Emma nodded, her competition experience translating to tactical assessment. They expect fear, confusion, looking for signs of weakness. Her hand moved to her belly, feeling another kick. They won't find any. Their security system pinged, motion sensors at the north property line. Through high-end optics, Emma spotted a team placing something near their irrigation controls, not explosives. This was too sophisticated for simple destruction. They were setting up for controlled pressure, likely planning to manipulate their water supply. More messages arrived from their growing network of allies. Jimmy reports unusual equipment being moved into abandoned warehouses. Ed Thompson noting increased activity around old mining sites. Sarah shared intercepted communications, suggesting coordinated operations planned for multiple properties. The syndicate was implementing a complex strategy, combining criminal resources with military precision. They thought their sophisticated approach guaranteed victory against simple farmers, but they'd made one crucial miscalculation. They hadn't realized they were dealing with someone who understood sophisticated strategy at the highest level. Shooting wasn't just about pulling triggers. It was about perfect execution under immense pressure, about understanding every variable that could affect your performance. Emma watched another team move through their orchard, noting their positions and patterns. In competition, success came from preparation, from knowing exactly when to take your shot. The same principles would apply here, but with stakes far higher than any gold medal, because Emma Chen hadn't spent years becoming one of the world's best competitive shooters just to win awards. Those skills, patience, precision, performing under the most intense pressure, had been preparing her for something far more important, protecting what mattered most. The night deepened over Pleasant Valley as more syndicate teams established positions around their farm. They thought their sophisticated operation guaranteed victory. They were about to learn that some targets are far more dangerous than they appear. Dawn painted Pleasant Valley in shades of gold as Emma studied fresh tire tracks near their irrigation controls. The morning dew revealed what the syndicate's teams had tried to hide, clear signs of sophisticated surveillance equipment being installed during the night. An unmarked van approached their property, moving with deliberate purpose. Through her spotting scope, Emma noted the high-end communications array disguised as normal roof racks. The side panel claimed Valley Irrigation Services, but the men who emerged moved with military bearing. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, the leader approached their porch, his friendly smile masking tactical awareness. Regular maintenance check, county requirement. Emma noted how his team spread out, establishing coverage zones just as she would when setting up shooting positions. Interesting timing, she replied calmly, considering the county inspection was last week. The man's smile didn't waver, but his hand shifted slightly toward a concealed weapon. Must be a paperwork mix-up. Mind if we check your pumping station? Won't take long. Michael stepped forward, his farmer's frame blocking the porch steps. Actually, we do mind. Private property. You can coordinate with our lawyer for any future inspections. Something dangerous flickered in the man's eyes. Look, folks, we can do this the easy way. He gestured, and two more vans appeared from the access road. Or we can make things complicated. Emma's trained eye caught movement in the orchard. More teams taking positions, using her own trees as cover, professional work, exactly how she would set up a shooting gallery. Except they didn't realize they were walking into one. I think we're done here, Michael stated firmly. The man's friendly facade vanished. No, you're done when we say you're done. Valley Resource Development owns your mortgage now. One phone call and you're in default. Emma felt their baby kick as she assessed positions and angles. At least 8 operators inside, probably more hidden, all armed, all professionally trained, but training worked both ways. Speaking of phone calls, she replied smoothly, you might want to check your communications. On cue, their hidden signal jammers activated, equipment Sarah's brother had provided. The team's tactical radios crackled with useless static. Emma allowed herself a small smile, remembering how signal interference had once thrown off her timing. In the Beijing qualifiers, she'd learned to adapt then. These men would have to adapt now. The leader's hand moved decisively toward his weapon, but Emma was already moving. Years of competition shooting had taught her that victory often came down to perfect timing. Her first shot hadn't been meant to hit anyone. The precision round struck the van's communications array, sending an impressive shower of sparks into the morning air. A warning, delivered with Olympic-level accuracy. Next one won't be a warning, she stated calmly, her competition stance perfect despite her pregnancy, and I never miss twice. The team's tactical formation wavered as they processed their situation. These weren't ordinary thugs. They were trained operators who recognized professional capability when they saw it. You have no idea what you're dealing with, the leader snarled. But Emma caught the uncertainty in his voice. Actually, she replied, I do. Former Force Recon, probably 2nd Battalion based on your movement patterns. Your team's ex-Rangers, except him. She nodded to a man trying to flank their position. He's got that SEAL tendency to favor right-side approaches. The operators froze, reassessing. Emma continued, her voice carrying the same calm focus she'd used in Olympic finals. You're using standard tactical formations, probably pulled from the Force Recon manual. Good stuff, but predictable. I counted. 12 of you setting up in my orchard. 3 more by the irrigation tanks. 2 sniper teams on the ridge, though their positioning needs work. Michael stood steady beside her, his farmer's strength matching her shooter's precision. The leader studied them with new wariness. Valley resource development doesn't take no for answer, he stated, but his tactical retreat was already beginning. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Emma replied. Those surveillance devices you planted last night, already traced to 3 shell companies tied to organized crime. Copies of that evidence just went to 4 different law enforcement agencies. Dead man's switch. Anything happens to us, it all goes public. She watched them process this information with the same focus she'd once used to read wind conditions. On the shooting range, the leader's expression showed he understood. This wasn't the simple intimidation job they'd expected. The team withdrew with professional efficiency, but Emma noted how they maintained tactical spacing. They'd come expecting to find easy targets. Instead, they'd found someone who could read their every move. As the vans departed, Sarah's truck appeared from the main road. The veterinarian's eyes were sharp as she surveyed the scene. Caught their backup team trying to access the old fire road, she reported. Let's just say they had an unfortunate encounter with a washed-out bridge. Amazing how road signs can go missing at just the right moment. Emma smiled slightly, remembering why they'd chosen this community. Farmers understood the importance of standing together against threats. Her phone buzzed, encrypted messages from their growing network of allies. The syndicate's team had been spotted regrouping at an abandoned warehouse. More vehicles were arriving, expensive SUVs and tactical vans. They're calling in specialists, Sarah's brother texted. These aren't just operators. They're bringing in their elite teams. Emma processed this information with competitive focus. The syndicate was escalating, moving from intimidation to direct action. Their next move would be more sophisticated, more aggressive. Perfect. Because Emma Chen hadn't spent years competing at the Olympic level just to win medals, she'd learned something more valuable: how to perform under escalating pressure, how to turn opponents' aggression against them. Michael touched her shoulder, gently. They'll be back. Yes, Emma agreed, her hand moving to her belly as their baby kicked again. But next time, we'll be ready. Through her spotting scope, she watched more syndicate vehicles arriving at their staging area. They were preparing something big, probably coordinating with other teams across the valley. They thought their military training and tactical expertise guaranteed victory. They were about to learn that some of the most dangerous opponents are the ones who don't look threatening at all. Sarah's phone buzzed with more intelligence from her brother. They're moving major resources into the area. Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon. Emma nodded, already calculating angles and positions. In competition shooting, success often came from anticipating your opponent's next move. The same principle would apply here, but with one crucial difference. This time, anticipation could mean the difference between life and death. The sun climbed higher over Pleasant Valley as Emma watched more syndicate teams establish positions around their farm. They thought their superior numbers and tactical training guaranteed victory. They were about to discover that sometimes the deadliest predators are the ones hiding in plain sight. The afternoon brought new developments as Emma's network of allies reported unusual activity throughout Pleasant Valley. Jimmy Chen called from the hardware store, his voice tense. They're buying up specific supplies, he reported. Industrial chain link fencing, concrete mix, heavy-duty locks. Same pattern as Riverdale County before they started securing properties. For safety violations? Through her spotting scope, Emma tracked more vehicles converging on the syndicate's staging area. Their tactical deployment had shifted. They were establishing a more permanent presence, setting up long-term surveillance positions. "Got something you need to see," Sarah texted, followed by drone footage showing construction at multiple sites across the valley. "They're not just taking properties, they're fortifying them." Michael studied the footage with a farmer's practical eye. "Those aren't agricultural installations. They're building some kind of secure compound system." Emma's tactical mind saw the pattern. The syndicate wasn't just trying to take their farm. They were transforming the entire valley into some kind of operational base. The old mining tunnels would connect everything underground, while their fake agricultural facilities provided cover above. Their scanner picked up fragments of encrypted communications, enough to confirm her suspicions. The syndicate was coordinating with teams outside the valley, part of a larger operation spanning multiple states. A truck approached their property, slowly. Ed Thompson's grandson Tyler, home from college where he studied geological engineering. The young man's face showed worry as he handed them a stack of surveys. "Those mining tunnels they're so interested in," he explained. "They don't just connect to other valleys. According to these old maps, they link up with an abandoned military storage facility from the Cold War, completely off official records." Emma processed this information while watching more syndicate teams establish positions around their farm. This wasn't just about property acquisition or criminal enterprise. They were building something bigger, something that required serious infrastructure. Her phone buzzed with another encrypted message from Sarah's brother. "Just intercepted their supply manifests. They're bringing in military-grade security systems, thermal imaging, seismic sensors. Whatever they're planning, it's professional-level operations." Through their kitchen window, Emma spotted more teams moving through their orchard. Their deployment pattern had changed. No longer just surveillance, they were mapping detailed tactical approaches, preparing for something specific. "They've started pressuring the county water board," Michael reported, reading messages from their network, "trying to force new regulations that would give them control over irrigation rights." Emma felt their baby kick as she analyzed the syndicate's strategy. They were implementing a sophisticated plan, combining legal pressure, tactical operations, and infrastructure development. Most people would be overwhelmed by the complexity, but Emma Chen hadn't spent years competing at the Olympic level just to win medals. She'd learned how to analyze complex situations under pressure, how to identify patterns others might miss. The sun began to set over Pleasant Valley as more vehicles arrived at the syndicate's staging area. They were preparing for their next move, confident that their resources and tactical expertise guaranteed victory. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who understand patience, precision, and the art of turning preparation against those who made it. Pleasant Valley's small community center buzzed with unusual activity as farmers gathered for what was officially called an agricultural planning meeting. Emma studied the faces around. People she'd known for 5 years, now revealing depths she'd never suspected. "County records show they've acquired 15 properties in the last month," Martha Reynolds announced, spreading maps across the table. The retired librarian's knowledge of local property records proved unexpectedly valuable. All strategic locations, all near mining tunnel access points. Jack Harrison, who ran the local farm equipment repair shop, stepped forward. Found these hidden in equipment they brought in for servicing. He produced several sophisticated surveillance devices, military grade, same type used in overseas operations. Emma wasn't the only one with hidden skills. Around the room, ordinary farmers and shopkeepers demonstrated knowledge that went far beyond their everyday roles. Their communication patterns match standard private military protocols, Pete Wilson observed. The quiet man who delivered their mail had spent 20 years in signals intelligence before retiring to Pleasant Valley. They're coordinating with teams outside the valley, probably part of a larger network. Sarah's brother appeared via secure video link, his private security background adding crucial intelligence. The syndicate's bringing in specialized teams, not just tactical operators. They've got logistics experts, infrastructure specialists. They're building something big. Through the community center's windows, Emma spotted more syndicate vehicles passing slowly. They thought they were watching a simple farmers' meeting. They didn't realize they were under surveillance themselves. They've started targeting our supply chains, Robert Chen reported. The elderly grocer's voice carried decades of business experience. Pressure on distributors, mysterious delivery problems, trying to isolate us economically. Michael studied the gathered intelligence with a farmer's practical eye. They're not just trying to take our land. They're trying to control everything that makes farming possible. Water, supplies, distribution. Got movement at the old Miller place? Tyler Thompson's voice crackled through their newly established radio network. The college students' engineering knowledge had helped set up secure communications throughout the valley. Heavy equipment coming in. Looks like they're starting major construction. Emma felt their baby kick as she processed these developments. The syndicate thought they were dealing with simple farmers, easy to intimidate and control. They didn't realize Pleasant Valley's residents had skills and knowledge accumulated over lifetimes. My cousin works for the State Environmental Office, Lisa Martinez added. The quiet woman who ran the local diner had family connections throughout the government. They're pushing through permits for agricultural processing facilities at 6 different locations, all fast-tracked, all using different shell companies. More pieces of the puzzle emerged as community members shared information. The syndicate wasn't just building a criminal enterprise. They were establishing a sophisticated operational network, using the valley's legitimate agricultural business as cover. Found these in their supply requisitions, Jack Harrison continued, displaying more documents, industrial-grade ventilation systems, specialized electrical equipment. Whatever they're building underground, it's major infrastructure. Emma's tactical mind connected patterns others might miss. The syndicate was creating something that required significant power, climate control, and security. Something they wanted to keep hidden from official scrutiny. They've started moving against local businesses, Robert Chen reported grimly. Pressure on banks to call in loans, mysterious health code violations. Anyone who won't cooperate suddenly has problems. The community center's atmosphere tensed as more reports came in. The syndicate was implementing a comprehensive strategy to take control of Pleasant Valley, using tactics that went far beyond simple intimidation. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They thought they were targeting isolated farmers, vulnerable individuals who could be picked off one by one. They didn't realize they were dealing with a community that had unexpected strengths and hidden capabilities. Got their surveillance teams moving again, Tyler reported through their radio network, setting up new observation posts around the valley perimeter. Emma watched more syndicate vehicles pass through town, their operators confident in their tactical superiority. They didn't realize that every movement was being observed, every pattern noted by people who knew this land intimately. They're expanding their operation, Sarah's brother warned through the secure link. Similar patterns appear in other agricultural communities. This is just the first phase of something bigger. The gathered farmers processed this information with the same patience they applied to tending crops. The syndicate thought their sophisticated operation guaranteed victory against simple rural people. They were about to learn that sometimes the most formidable opponents are the ones who understand the value of working together, of combining seemingly ordinary skills into something extraordinary. A drone buzzed overhead, one of the syndicate's regular surveillance passes. Through the community center's windows, Emma spotted their tactical teams conducting another property assessment. They thought they were gathering intelligence. Instead, they were revealing their methods to people who had spent lifetimes learning to read subtle signs. in weather, in crops, in human nature. "They'll make their move soon," Michael observed, his farmer's instincts reading the increasing pressure. "Probably coordinated action against multiple targets." Emma nodded, her competitive shooting experience translating to tactical assessment. The syndicate was following a familiar pattern, escalating pressure, leading to decisive action. But they'd forgotten something crucial about rural communities. Farmers understood patience. They knew how to wait for the right moment, how to prepare. Quietly, while others thought they were doing nothing, more vehicles passed through town, expensive SUVs carrying what looked like corporate executives, the syndicate's leadership coming to oversee their operation personally. They projected confidence, certainty in their ability to dominate simple rural people. They had no idea they were being watched by a community that had already survived countless challenges: weather, economic pressure, changing times, people. Who understand that true strength often comes from working together. Emma felt their baby kick again as she studied the gathered faces. The syndicate had brought sophisticated tactics and military expertise to Pleasant Valley, confident it would guarantee their victory. They were about to discover that sometimes the most effective resistance doesn't come from matching force with force, but from combining unexpected talents into something more powerful than any tactical operation. The sun began to set over Pleasant Valley as Emma watched more syndicate teams establish positions around the community. They thought their superior resources and training made them invincible. They were about to learn that some communities are far more formidable than they appear. The meeting shifted as Grace Miller, who ran the local farm supply cooperative, stepped forward with additional intelligence. "Their purchasing patterns changed this morning," she reported, spreading invoices across the table. "They're buying up large quantities of specialized agriculture chemicals, not the usual fertilizers. These are precursors for something else." Emma studied the documents with growing concern. Her Olympic shooting experience had taught her to analyze every detail that might affect performance. These chemical purchases painted a disturbing picture. "They're setting up manufacturing facilities," Dr. James Wong confirmed. The retired chemical engineer had moved to Pleasant Valley for a quiet life tending his garden. Now his expertise revealed a darker purpose behind the syndicate's actions. These compounds, in these quantities, they're creating something sophisticated and probably illegal. Through the community center's windows, Emma spotted another syndicate surveillance team, this one using different tactics, more sophisticated observation techniques. They were learning, adapting their approach. "Got movement at the old grain elevator." Tyler's voice crackled through their radio network. "They're installing some kind of specialized ventilation system. Heavy security presence." More pieces of the puzzle emerged as community members shared observations. The syndicate wasn't just taking over properties, they were transforming Pleasant Valley's agricultural infrastructure into something else entirely. "Their security patterns have shifted," noted Carol Martinez, who delivered mail. "On the valley's eastern route, they're concentrating forces around specific locations, especially at night. Something big is happening underground." Emma felt their baby kick as she processed these developments. The syndicate thought their operation was undetected, their true purpose hidden behind agricultural covers. They didn't realize they were being watched by people who noticed every change in their valley's rhythms. "Found this in their discarded paperwork," Jack Harrison added, producing crumpled documents. "Shipping manifests for specialized equipment. Temperature control systems, air filtration, industrial-grade power supplies." The community center grew quiet as Rebecca Chen, the local high school chemistry teacher, examined the manifests. "This equipment, it's not for farming. These are the kind of systems you'd need for large-scale pharmaceutical production, or worse." Sarah's brother appeared again on the secure video link. "Just intercepted communications about product testing." Schedules. They're planning to start operations within the month. Emma's tactical mind saw the larger strategy. The syndicate wasn't just building a hidden facility. They were creating an entire production and distribution network, using Pleasant Valley's legitimate agricultural business as cover. They're moving against transportation networks now, Robert, Chen reported. Pressure on trucking companies, mysterious accidents on delivery routes. They want to control everything moving in and out of the valley. The gathered farmers processed this information with the same patience they applied to waiting. Outstorms. The syndicate thought their sophisticated operation was invisible to simple rural people. They didn't realize they were dealing with a community that had generations of experience reading signs others might miss. In weather, in soil, in human behavior. My contact at the EPA confirms it, Lisa Martinez added quietly. They're using agricultural permits to hide industrial development. The same pattern is appearing in other farming communities across 3 states. Through the windows, Emma watched more syndicate vehicles arrive, expensive cars carrying what looked like technical specialists. They were bringing in experts, confident their operation was secure. They had no idea they were being observed by people who had spent lifetimes learning to notice details, to understand patterns, to read intentions in subtle signs. The sun began to set over Pleasant Valley as the community meeting continued. The syndicate thought their sophisticated planning and tactical expertise guaranteed success. They were about to discover that sometimes the most effective resistance comes from people who understand that true strength lies not in individual power, but in the combined knowledge of an entire community working together. The night air carried an electric tension as Emma watched flames consume the Thompsons' barn. The fire had started precisely at midnight, spreading with unnatural speed that suggested professional sabotage. Through her spotting scope, she identified 3 tactical teams maintaining observation positions around the burning structure. Insurance companies already denying the claim, Sarah reported through their secure channel. Same pattern as the Henderson fire in Riverdale. They're moving faster now, more aggressive. Michael's hand found hers as they watched from their kitchen window. The syndicate had chosen their target carefully. The Thompson farm controlled key water rights for the valley's eastern section. This wasn't random destruction. It was strategic pressure. Got movement at the old mining entrance. Tyler's voice crackled through their radio network. Heavy equipment. Looks like they're starting major excavation, using the fire as cover while everyone's distracted. Emma's tactical mind processed these developments. The barn fire wasn't just intimidation, it was misdirection, drawing attention. While they advanced their real operation underground, their scanner picked up encrypted communications, suggesting coordinated activities at multiple sites. The syndicate was implementing their next phase, confident that the community's response to the fire would leave other areas vulnerable. They hadn't counted on Emma's Olympic-trained ability to spot patterns others might miss. 3 more teams are moving into position, she reported, tracking thermal signatures through specialized optics. They're using standard tactical spacing, but their formation suggests they're preparing for something bigger than surveillance. Her suspicions were confirmed when the power grid failed valley-wide. Not a random outage. Emma caught glimpses of professional teams moving in the darkness, using night vision equipment to approach key infrastructure points. They've taken control of the main transformer station, Pete Wilson reported through their emergency communications network. But they don't know about our backup systems, because Pleasant Valley had learned from past natural disasters. Solar arrays hidden on barn roofs, wind turbines disguised as traditional windmills. The community had quietly prepared for independence from the main power grid. The syndicate's operation continued with military precision. Teams moved through the darkness, securing strategic positions around major farms and key infrastructure. They thought their night vision equipment and tactical training gave them complete advantage in the darkness. They didn't realize they were being watched by someone who had spent years learning to read terrain and track movement under the most challenging conditions. Emma's phone buzzed with encrypted messages from their network. The syndicate wasn't just attacking the Thompson farm. Reports came in of simultaneous pressure across the valley. Storage facilities finding their locks mysteriously changed. Delivery trucks experiencing suspicious breakdowns. Banks, suddenly, require immediate loan reviews. A coordinated squeeze designed to break the community's resistance through multiple pressure points. Through her thermal scope, Emma tracked more teams approaching critical locations. Their movement patterns suggested extensive tactical training, but also revealed their intentions to experienced eyes. They're setting up for a valley-wide operation, she analyzed, remembering how Olympic competition had taught her to read subtle signs under pressure. Multiple teams, coordinated targets. This isn't just about intimidation anymore. Her assessment proved accurate as explosions illuminated the night sky. Not random destruction, precisely targeted charges severing key irrigation lines, disrupting water supplies to specific farms. Got their command vehicle moving, Tyler reported. Heading toward the old grain elevator. Looks like they're establishing a forward operations center. Sarah's brother appeared on their secure video link, his private security experience adding crucial insight. They're implementing a standard tactical takeover protocol. Disable infrastructure, isolate targets, then apply focused pressure on key points. Emma felt their baby kick as she watched more syndicate teams deploy around the valley. They were following a sophisticated strategy, one designed to break civilian resistance through carefully calibrated pressure. But they'd made one crucial miscalculation. A massive explosion rocked the northern ridge, far larger than the previous charges. Through her scope, Emma spotted teams moving with urgency toward the old mining entrances. That wasn't them, Michael observed, his farmer's instincts reading the syndicate's sudden shift in patterns. Something went wrong with their underground operation. Emergency frequencies crackled with encrypted communications as syndicate teams redirected toward the explosion site. Whatever had happened beneath Pleasant Valley, it hadn't been part of their planned operation. They hit something in the old military storage facility, Tyler reported, his geological knowledge providing crucial insight. Those tunnels aren't as stable as their survey suggested. Emma's tactical mind saw the opportunity in their disrupted operations. The syndicate's carefully coordinated plan was now dealing with an unexpected crisis, forcing them to reveal capabilities they'd meant to keep hidden. Through her scope, she tracked specialized teams emerging from concealed positions, explosive disposal units, hazmat crews, equipment she wouldn't expect from a simple criminal organization. They're not just building a drug lab, Sarah's brother concluded, watching the response through surveillance feeds. Whatever they're planning to produce down there requires military-grade containment. The night air filled with more tactical chatter as syndicate teams coordinated their response. Emma noted how their professional discipline wavered, revealing hints of genuine concern in their communications. Got their leadership arriving, Tyler reported. Multiple vehicles, heavy security. Something about this situation has them spooked. Emma watched through her scope as expensive SUVs converged on the explosion site. The syndicate's commanders were taking direct control, suggesting this crisis threatened something crucial to their larger operation. Her Olympic experience had taught her that sometimes the most important moments came not from perfect execution, but from recognizing when an opponent's plans began to unravel. The Thompson's barn continued to burn, but its tactical significance had shifted. What started as a coordinated operation to break Pleasant Valley's resistance had transformed into something else, a revelation of vulnerabilities in the syndicate's careful planning. Through their kitchen window, Emma tracked more teams moving with urgent purpose through the darkness. They thought their night vision equipment and tactical training made them invisible. They didn't realize they were being observed by someone who understood that sometimes the most crucial intelligence comes from watching how opponents react when their plans go wrong. The night deepened over Pleasant Valley as Emma processed these developments. The syndicate had launched their operation with professional precision, confident their superior resources and tactical expertise guaranteed victory. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who know how to recognize opportunity in chaos. The night's revelations continued as more syndicate teams emerged from hidden positions. Emma spotted specialized equipment being rushed to the explosion site, devices that went far beyond normal criminal operations. Those are military-grade containment units, Sarah's brother identified through their video link. Same type used for handling chemical weapons. Whatever they're building down there, it's way more sophisticated than we thought. Through her thermal scope, Emma tracked hazmat teams deploying around the mining entrance. Their movements showed urgency, but also extreme caution, the kind of care usually reserved for handling highly dangerous materials. Got their technical specialists arriving, Tyler reported. These aren't just security contractors. They've got CDC-level protective gear. A new series of explosions echoed through the valley. Smaller, more controlled. The syndicate was implementing emergency containment protocols, sealing off sections of their underground facility. They're not just worried about structural collapse, Dr. Wong observed through their secure channel. Those are chemical containment procedures, standard response to potential exposure events. Emma felt their baby kick as she processed these developments. The syndicate's operation had multiple layers, each crisis revealing more about their true capabilities and intentions. Their communication patterns have changed, Pete Wilson reported, monitoring encrypted channels. They're using protocols I haven't heard since my military days. High-level classified operation stuff. Through her scope, Emma watched more specialized teams deploy around the valley. The syndicate's professional facade was cracking, revealing glimpses of something far more sophisticated beneath. Got movement at their other sites, Carol Martinez reported through their radio network. They're implementing some kind of emergency shutdown, securing equipment, moving materials. Sarah's brother appeared again on their secure link, just intercepted partial transmissions, something about Project Eclipse and containment protocols. These aren't criminal codes, they're military project designations. The Thompson's barn. Fire had become almost forgotten as Emma tracked the syndicate's crisis response. Their carefully coordinated operation was revealing unexpected depths, layers of capability that suggested connections to something bigger than organized crime. Their leadership's getting desperate, Tyler observed. More teams are arriving, but they're not following standard tactical protocols anymore. They're rushing, making mistakes. Emma's Olympic experience had taught her that pressure revealed truth in competition, in tactical operations, in human nature. The syndicate's response to this crisis was showing their real nature. Through her thermal scope, she tracked more specialized vehicles arriving. Unmarked helicopters, equipment trucks bearing fake company logos. Each new element suggested connections to official organizations that shouldn't be involved with criminal operations. They're implementing a full containment lockdown, Dr. Wong reported, analyzing their response patterns. These aren't just security measures. They're trying to prevent exposure of materials and information. The night air crackled with more encrypted communications as syndicate teams coordinated their crisis response. Emma noted how their professional discipline continued to crack, revealing glimpses of genuine fear in their operations. The syndicate had launched their operation with sophisticated planning and tactical precision. Now, faced with unexpected complications, they were showing their true nature and their real connections to powers that should have been far beyond a criminal organization's reach. Because Emma's Olympic experience had taught her something crucial about pressure situations. Sometimes the most important intelligence comes not from what opponents plan to show you, but from what they reveal. When those plans go wrong, dawn painted Pleasant Valley in shades of ash as emergency vehicles converged on the underground facility. Emma tracked multiple teams through her scope. Hazmat units, specialized containment crews, and what looked suspiciously like government agencies operating without official markings. Got a match on one of their response teams, Sarah's brother, reported through their secure channel. They're using equipment exclusive to DARPA research projects. This isn't just about criminal enterprise anymore. Emma's hand moved to her belly as she processed this information. The baby seemed unusually active, as if sensing the tension in the air. Through her scope, she watched more specialized units deploy around the explosion site. Their containment protocols match classified military standards, Pete Wilson confirmed, his signals intelligence background proving crucial. These aren't contractors playing soldiers. They're connected to official programs. A sleek helicopter touched down near the operations center, its unmarked exterior suggesting government connections. The man who emerged moved with the distinctive bearing of senior military command. Colonel James Drake, Sarah's brother, identified. Through their video feed, former Special Projects Division, officially retired 3 years ago, but his name keeps appearing in connection with classified research programs. Emma's tactical mind connected patterns as she watched Drake coordinate the response teams. His presence suggested this operation went far beyond the syndicate's apparent criminal goals. Got their technical data, Tyler reported, having managed to intercept partial transmissions. They're not just building production facilities. These are research and development installations, military-grade laboratories hidden under agricultural cover. Through her thermal scope, Emma tracked more specialized equipment being moved into the underground facility. The syndicate's operation had multiple layers, each crisis revealing deeper connections to official powers that shouldn't be involved with criminal enterprises. Found something interesting, Dr. Wong added through their secure channel. Those chemical compounds they're ordering, they match patterns from classified medical research programs. They're developing something new down there. Michael studied the technical data with a farmer's practical eye. These aren't just storage facilities they're building, the power requirements, the ventilation systems. They're creating something bigger. Emma's Olympic experience had taught her to analyze situations from multiple angles, to see patterns others might miss. The syndicate's response to this crisis revealed capabilities that went far beyond organized crime. Their communication protocols changed again, Pete reported. They're using encryption standards I haven't seen since my NSA days. Whatever's down there, it's classified at the highest levels. Through her scope, Emma watched Colonel Drake coordinate with more arrival teams. His presence connected multiple pieces of the puzzle, the military-grade equipment, the classified protocols, the sophisticated research facilities. Got their project files, Tyler announced, his voice tense. They're calling it Operation Harvest, using agricultural communities as cover for developing some kind of enhanced pharmaceutical compound, something that shouldn't exist outside. Military labs. Sarah's brother appeared on their secure link, his face showing real concern. Just intercepted more transmissions. This isn't just one facility. They're building a network across multiple states. Pleasant Valley is just the first test site. Emma felt their baby kick as she processed these revelations. The syndicate wasn't just a criminal organization trying to take over farming communities. They were front for something much larger. A classified operation using rural areas to hide development of substances that official agencies wouldn't want traced back to them. Their containment teams are spreading out, Carol Martinez reported through their radio network, setting up monitoring stations around the valley perimeter. They're worried about exposure, not just of materials, but of information. Through her thermal scope, Emma tracked more specialized units deploying around Pleasant Valley. Each team revealed another layer of official connection, equipment that shouldn't exist outside government agencies, protocols that suggested military oversight. Found more project details, Dr. Wong added. They're developing something that combines pharmaceutical compounds with classified chemical agents, creating something new, something that bypasses normal regulatory oversight. The morning air crackled with encrypted communications as more response teams arrived. Emma noted how their protocols shifted between criminal organization and official operation, a sophisticated blend designed to maintain deniability. Colonel Drake's background is interesting, Sarah's brother reported. Before his retirement, he ran classified research programs developing enhanced performance compounds. Projects that officially don't exist. Emma's tactical mind saw the larger pattern. Pleasant Valley hadn't been chosen randomly. Its isolated location, agricultural cover, and underground infrastructure made it perfect for hiding classified research operations. Through her scope, she watched Drake coordinate with more specialized teams. His presence confirmed what the evidence suggested. The syndicate was just the visible face of something much larger. Got their facility blueprints, Tyler announced. These aren't just labs. They're creating a self-contained research and production network, using the old mining tunnels to connect everything underground, while maintaining legitimate agricultural operations as cover. Michael's hand found Emma's as they processed these revelations. The syndicate's attempt to take over their farm wasn't just about property acquisition. It was part of a larger operation using rural communities to hide classified development programs. Their security patterns make more sense now, Pete observed. They're not just protecting criminal operations. They're implementing protocols designed to hide government-level projects from official oversight. Emma's Olympic experience had taught her something crucial about high-pressure situations. Sometimes the most important revelations come not from what people try to show you, but from what they reveal when their plans go wrong. The morning sun rose higher as more specialized teams deployed around Pleasant Valley. The syndicate's operation had multiple layers of deception. Criminal organization hiding government connection, agricultural cover concealing classified research, but they'd made one crucial miscalculation. They thought their sophisticated planning and official connections guaranteed success against simple rural people. They didn't realize they were dealing with a community that had its own hidden depths. People who understood that sometimes the most effective resistance comes from seeing patterns others try to hide. Emma watched more response teams coordinate around the explosion site. The syndicate and their government backers had created something sophisticated, layers of deception hiding classified operations from official oversight. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who understand how to reveal what others want kept hidden. Found something else in their files, Tyler reported urgently. References to Phase 2 sites. They're targeting other agricultural communities across the country. Pleasant Valley isn't just a test site, it's a prototype. Through her thermal scope, Emma watched Colonel Drake take a secured call, his body language suggesting growing concern. More specialized teams rushed toward the underground facility, their equipment revealing capabilities that shouldn't exist outside classified programs. Got their personnel files, Sarah's brother added through their secure link. The research teams they're bringing in, they're all former military scientists, specialists in chemical enhancement and biological augmentation, people who officially retired from government work. Dr. Wong's voice carried tension as he analyzed intercepted technical data. These formulas they're developing, they're combining restricted pharmaceutical compounds with classified military chemicals, creating something that could enhance human capabilities beyond normal limits. Emma felt their baby kick as she processed these revelations. The syndicate's operation wasn't just about hiding illegal research. They were developing something that could fundamentally change human performance. Their security protocols just shifted again, Pete reported. They're implementing countdown procedures. Whatever they're working on down there, it's reaching some kind of critical phase. Through her scope, Emma tracked more specialized teams deploying around the valley. Each unit revealed another layer of the operation, equipment designed for handling experimental compounds, containment protocols for managing test subjects. Found their subject lists, Carol Martinez announced grimly. They're planning human trials, using isolated rural communities as testing grounds where unusual effects wouldn't draw attention. Sarah appeared on their secure video link, her veterinary knowledge providing crucial insight. The chemical markers in their formulas, they're similar to experimental performance enhancers developed for military operations, but these are more advanced, more aggressive. Emma's tactical mind saw the larger strategy. Pleasant Valley's isolated location and agricultural cover wouldn't just hide their research, it would provide perfect conditions for testing their compounds without official oversight. Colonel Drake's making more calls, Tyler reported. Bringing in additional containment teams, whatever they're developing down there, it's already progressed further than they planned. Through her thermal scope, Emma watched more government-grade equipment arrive. The syndicate had created something sophisticated, a classified research operation hidden behind layers of criminal enterprise and legitimate agriculture. But they'd made one crucial miscalculation. They thought their official connections and sophisticated planning guaranteed their secrecy. They didn't realize they were dealing with people who had spent lifetimes learning to see what others tried to hide. In weather patterns, in crop cycles, in human nature. The morning sun climbed higher as Emma processed these developments. The syndicate and their government backers had created something dangerous, using rural isolation to hide research that official agencies wouldn't want traced back to them. They were about to discover that sometimes the most effective resistance comes from people who understand that the truth, once revealed, becomes its own kind of weapon. Pleasant Valley's community center had transformed into an impromptu command post. As farmers implemented their response to the syndicate's operation, Emma watched various groups coordinate with practiced efficiency that would have surprised their opponents. Got their security rotations mapped, Tyler reported, spreading detailed schedules across the table. They're running 3 shifts, but their changeover points create vulnerability windows every 6 hours. Dr. Wong analyzed chemical supply manifests with growing concern. They're accelerating their timeline. These delivery schedules suggest they're preparing for large-scale production. Within the week, Emma's Olympic experience with precision timing proved crucial as she coordinated their counter-strategy. We'll need to move before they fully establish their production capability. Already have teams in position, Sarah confirmed through their secure channel. Local hunting clubs provide coverage of all major access points. They know every trail and hidden approach in these hills. Michael studied topographical maps showing the underground facility network. The old mining tunnels have natural ventilation shafts, potential access points they might have missed. Emma felt their baby kick as she processed these tactical options. The syndicate thought their military-grade security could contain any threat. They hadn't counted on facing people who knew this land intimately. Got their communication protocols mapped, Pete reported. They're using encrypted channels, but their reliance on digital systems creates exploitable gaps. Through her scope, Emma watched syndicate teams conduct another security sweep. Their military training showed in every movement, but also revealed patterns that experienced eyes could predict. Local cement plants ready, Jack Harrison added. We can shut down their underground access points permanently if needed. They think they control the tunnels, but we know how to seal them. Sarah's brother appeared on their secure link. Just confirmed, they're bringing in more research staff. Scientists with backgrounds in experimental therapeutics and human enhancement. Emma's tactical mind processed these developments while supervising defensive preparations. The community's response didn't match the syndicate's military precision, but it had its own kind of effectiveness. Got their supply lines mapped, Carol Martinez reported. They're dependent on regular deliveries through specific routes. Remove those access points, and their whole operation stalls, Michael finished, his farmer's practicality finding weak points in their sophisticated planning. Dr. Wong analyzed more technical data. Their experimental compounds require precise environmental conditions. Any disruption to their climate control systems could compromise weeks of research. Emma watched more specialized teams arrive through her thermal scope. The syndicate's operation showed professional training and classified backing, but it also revealed crucial dependencies. Local construction crews are prepared, Tyler added, ready to implement emergency road repairs on their primary access routes. Complete with county permits they can't challenge without revealing themselves. Martha Reynolds appeared with more intelligence from county records, found their property acquisition patterns. They need specific locations for their network, can't just relocate if they lose access. Emma's Olympic experience had taught her that sometimes victory comes not from matching an opponent's strength, but from understanding their vulnerabilities. Got their power requirements calculated, Pete reported. They're drawing massive energy for their underground facilities. 1. Transformer failure could shut down critical systems. Through their kitchen window, Emma tracked more syndicate vehicles arriving. Each new team showed sophisticated capabilities, but also revealed how dependent their operation was on complex support systems. Local farmers are ready, Michael confirmed. We can flood the lower tunnel networks through the irrigation systems, make their underground facilities unusable without damaging surface structures. Sarah's veterinary knowledge provided another tactical option. Their research requires controlled conditions. Introduction of certain agricultural compounds could contaminate their entire operation. Emma felt their baby kick as she coordinated these preparations. The syndicate thought their classified backing and military training guaranteed success. They hadn't considered how vulnerable complex operations become when facing opponents who understand the land. Got their security patrol patterns mapped, Tyler reported. They're professional, but predictable, following standard military protocols, without adapting to local conditions. Dr. Wong analyzed more technical data. Their experimental compounds are unstable, requiring precise handling and storage. Any disruption to their containment systems could compromise their entire research program. Emma finished, her tactical mind seeing multiple pressure points in their sophisticated operation. Through her thermal scope, she watched Colonel Drake coordinate more specialized teams. The syndicate had created something complex, using classified backing and military expertise to hide their true purpose. But they'd made one crucial miscalculation. They thought their sophisticated planning and government connections made them invincible. They didn't realize they were facing people who understood that sometimes the most effective resistance comes not from matching force with force, but from finding precisely where pressure should be applied. Local construction crews began positioning equipment near key access routes. Farming vehicles moved into strategic locations, ready to implement their coordinated response. Hunting clubs established observation posts covering every approach to the valley. The syndicate had brought military training and classified technology to Pleasant Valley, confident their superior resources guaranteed victory. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who understand that complex operations have complex vulnerabilities and know exactly how to exploit them. Emma watched more response teams deploy around the underground facility. The syndicate thought their sophisticated security could contain any threat. They didn't realize they were dealing with people who had spent lifetimes learning how to work together, how to combine simple skills into something more powerful than any tactical operation. The morning sun climbed higher as Pleasant Valley's defenders finalized their preparations. The syndicate had created something sophisticated, layers of security protecting classified research. They were about to discover that sometimes the most effective resistance comes not from sophisticated planning, but from understanding exactly where and how to apply pressure. "Found something in their thermal imaging patterns," Tyler reported, reviewing surveillance data. "Their underground climate control systems create distinct heat signatures. We can track their most critical research areas by monitoring temperature fluctuations." Emma's tactical mind immediately saw the advantage. Those heat patterns also reveal their vulnerabilities. Any disruption to their cooling systems could force them to evacuate sensitive materials, Dr. Wong confirmed. Their experimental compounds require precise temperature control. Even a few degrees variation could compromise weeks of research. Through her scope, Emma watched more specialized teams reinforce the facility's security. Each new measure revealed another potential pressure point in their complex operation. "Local aviation clubs ready," Sarah added through their secure channel. "Crop dusting planes modified with surveillance equipment. They can't challenge routine agricultural flights without exposing their operation." Michael coordinated with other farmers, establishing a network of equipment and resources that looked normal but served tactical purposes. Got spreaders positioned to distribute neutralizing agents if needed. They'll just look like regular fertilizer. Applications. Emma felt their baby kick as she processed these preparations. The syndicate had created sophisticated security, but they'd forgotten something crucial about rural communities. Farmers were masters of making simple tools serve multiple purposes. "Grain elevators set up," Jack Harrison reported. "We can flood their ventilation systems with agricultural dust. Non-toxic, but it'll play havoc with their sensitive equipment." Pete monitored their encrypted communications. "They're bringing in more specialized research staff. Each new team adds strain to their support systems. Power, water, climate control." Through her thermal scope, Emma tracked more government-grade equipment arriving. The syndicate's operation showed impressive capabilities, but also growing complications. As they expanded their research program, local emergency services are briefed, Martha Reynolds confirmed, ready to implement safety protocols that will restrict access to key areas. All perfectly legal, all difficult to challenge without revealing themselves. Sarah's brother appeared on their secure link. Intercepted their supply manifests. Their research requires specialized materials that can only come through specific routes. Disrupt those deliveries, and their whole timeline falls apart, Emma finished. Her Olympic experience with precision timing proving crucial for coordinating their response. Dr. Wong analyzed more technical data with growing confidence. Their experimental compounds are like high-performance athletes, requiring perfect conditions to function. Any disruption to those conditions creates cascading failures through their entire system, Tyler added, mapping potential pressure points in their infrastructure. Emma watched another security team establish position near their farm. The syndicate had brought impressive resources to Pleasant Valley, but they'd forgotten something crucial about rural people. Farmers understood systems, how complex operations depend on countless small elements working together. Disrupt those. elements, and even the most sophisticated operation becomes vulnerable. Got their water usage patterns mapped, Carol Martinez reported. They're drawing massive amounts for their cooling systems. Any interruption to that flow forces them to shut down critical processes, Michael confirmed, his agricultural experience finding weaknesses in their complex infrastructure. Through her scope, Emma tracked more specialized teams arriving. Each new addition to the syndicate's operation added another potential point of failure, another system that could be disrupted through perfectly legal, seemingly innocent agricultural activities. The community center buzzed with coordinated preparation as Pleasant Valley's defenders finalized their plans. They might not match the syndicate's military precision or classified technology, but they had something potentially more powerful. They understood that sometimes the most effective resistance comes not from direct confrontation, but from knowing exactly how complex systems can be disrupted by simple actions applied at precisely the right points. The morning sun rose higher as Emma watched more government-grade equipment arrive. The syndicate thought their sophisticated operation was invulnerable to simple rural opposition. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who understand that complex systems have complex vulnerabilities and know exactly how to use those vulnerabilities to their advantage. The confrontation began at precisely 2:47 a.m., when Pleasant Valley's power grid failed completely. Not from syndicate action this time, but from carefully coordinated equipment malfunctions at key transformer stations. Their backup generators just kicked in, Tyler reported through their secure channel, drawing maximum power to maintain critical research systems. Emma tracked multiple heat signatures through her thermal scope as syndicate teams rushed to secure their facility. Their movements showed professional training, but also growing urgency as more systems began failing. Local irrigation networks are responding, Michael confirmed. Pressure dropping in their cooling systems. Temperature in the underground facility rises 2 degrees every 15 minutes. Through her scope, Emma watched Colonel Drake coordinate an emergency response. The syndicate's sophisticated operation was facing something they hadn't anticipated: cascading system failures triggered by seemingly innocent agricultural activities. Their ventilation systems are showing stress, Dr. Wong reported, monitoring technical data. Atmospheric conditions in the research areas are becoming unstable. Their experimental compounds won't tolerate much more variation. Sarah's brother appeared on their secure link. They're calling in emergency response teams, but local road crews have already started essential maintenance on their primary access routes. Emma felt their baby kick as she tracked more syndicate teams deploying around the facility. Their military training showed in every movement, but also revealed growing confusion as they faced threats their tactical protocols hadn't prepared them for. Got their communication systems degrading, Pete confirmed. Too much agricultural dust in the air. Their encrypted channels are breaking down. Through her thermal scope, Emma watched sophisticated equipment failing as environmental conditions deteriorated. The syndicate had created something complex, dependent on perfect conditions. Now those conditions were being disrupted by simple farming activities they couldn't challenge without exposing their true operation. Their research staff is evacuating sensitive materials, Tyler reported, but they can only move them through specific routes, all currently blocked by legitimate agricultural operations. Colonel Drake's voice carried real tension as he coordinated with his teams. Their professional discipline was cracking as they faced an opponent they couldn't effectively target, a community using simple, legal activities to systematically dismantle their complex operation. Temperature in their storage areas is critical, Dr. Wong announced. Their experimental compounds are becoming unstable. They'll have to implement emergency containment protocols. Emma's Olympic experience with precision timing proved crucial as she coordinated the community's response. The syndicate had brought military expertise and classified technology to Pleasant Valley. Now they were discovering how vulnerable, sophisticated operations become when facing opponents who understand exactly where pressure should be applied. Local emergency services implementing safety protocols, Martha Reynolds reported. All access to the facility officially restricted due to potential hazardous conditions. Through her scope, Emma tracked more specialized teams arriving, only to be delayed by perfectly legal agricultural activities. Every attempt to restore their systems faced new complications that appeared completely natural to outside observers. Their climate control systems are failing, Sarah confirmed. Environmental conditions in the research areas are no longer suitable for their experimental compounds. Michael coordinated with other farmers, maintaining the appearance of normal agricultural operations while systematically disrupting the syndicate's infrastructure. Got fertilizer spreaders? Moving into position, any attempt to stop them reveals their operation. Emma watched Colonel Drake's growing frustration as his sophisticated operation faced death by 1,000 cuts. None of them directly attributable to hostile action. All of them perfectly legitimate farming activities. Their security teams are splitting up, Tyler reported, trying to address multiple system failures simultaneously, breaking their own tactical protocols. Through her thermal scope, Emma tracked syndicate teams rushing between failing systems. Their military training meant nothing against opponents who understood that sometimes the most effective resistance comes not from direct confrontation, but from knowing exactly how complex operations can be dismantled through simple actions. Research. Staff reporting critical equipment failures, Dr. Wong announced. Their experimental compounds require emergency evacuation, but all viable evacuation routes are currently blocked by normal agricultural activities. Sarah's brother appeared again. On their secure link, they're calling for helicopter extraction, but local crop dusting planes are already conducting routine operations in the area. Emma felt their baby kick as she coordinated the community's response. The syndicate had created something sophisticated, dependent on complex support systems. Now those systems were failing, not from direct attack, but from the collective action of an entire community working together. Their backup power systems are overloading, Pete reported. Too much strain trying to maintain critical research conditions, cascading failures throughout their infrastructure. Through her scope, Emma watched more syndicate teams deploy around the facility. Each new attempt to restore their operation faced another complication, another coincidental farming activity that just happened to disrupt their efforts. Colonel Drake's voice carried genuine alarm as he coordinated with his specialized teams. The syndicate had brought impressive resources to Pleasant Valley, confident their superior training and technology guaranteed success. They were discovering that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who understand that complex systems have complex vulnerabilities and know exactly how to exploit them using the simplest tools. Their research staff is implementing emergency shutdown procedures, Tyler confirmed. Can't maintain necessary conditions for their experimental compounds. Entire operation was compromised. Emma's tactical mind processed these developments as she watched more syndicate teams rushing between failing systems. They had created something sophisticated, protected by layers of security and classified technology. Now they were learning that sometimes the most effective resistance comes not from matching force with force, but from understanding exactly how complex operations can be systematically dismantled through perfectly legal, seemingly innocent activities. The morning sun began to rise over Pleasant Valley as Emma coordinated the community's continued response. The syndicate had brought military expertise and government backing to their operation, confident their superior resources guaranteed victory. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who understand that sophisticated operations become most vulnerable when they can't identify exactly how or why their systems are failing. Their research staff is in full evacuation mode, Tyler reported, monitoring thermal signatures. But they're running into unexpected complications. Local wildlife control is conducting a routine inspection for invasive species along their transport routes. Emma watched through her scope as more syndicate teams scrambled to respond. Their professional training was evident, but increasingly useless against the coordinated actions of an entire community using everyday farming activities as tactical weapons. Got interesting readings from their storage areas, Dr. Wong announced, analyzing environmental data. The agricultural dust isn't just affecting their communications, it's contaminating their research samples. Every attempt to clean their systems just makes it worse. Colonel Drake's voice carried barely controlled fury as he tried to coordinate his team's response. This is a deliberate attack. These aren't coincidences. But they can't prove it, Sarah noted through their secure channel. Every single disruption is a legitimate agricultural activity. Challenging any of it exposes their operation. Emma felt their baby kick as she tracked more specialized teams, rushing between failing systems. The syndicate had created something dependent on perfect conditions. Now those conditions were being systematically disrupted by the most innocent-seeming actions. Their security protocols are breaking down, Pete reported. Teams responding to multiple emergencies without proper coordination, making mistakes we can exploit. Through her thermal scope, Emma watched sophisticated equipment being hastily evacuated, only to face new complications at every turn. Local road maintenance, agricultural operations, and routine inspections, all perfectly legal, all precisely timed to create maximum disruption. Found something in their emergency protocols, Tyler added. They're required to maintain complete containment of their experimental compounds. Any risk of exposure forces a total shutdown. Michael coordinated with other farmers, maintaining the appearance of normal operations while systematically tightening the pressure. Got 3 more spreaders moving into position. They'll have to choose between protecting their equipment and maintaining their secrecy. Emma's Olympic experience with precision timing proved crucial as she directed the community's coordinated response. The syndicate had brought impressive resources to Pleasant Valley. Now they are discovering how vulnerable complex operations become when facing opponents who understand exactly how systems can be disrupted without appearing to attack them directly. Their research staff is reporting critical failures in multiple systems, Dr. Wong confirmed. Environmental contamination, equipment malfunction, storage system degradation, all appearing completely natural to outside observers. Sarah's brother appeared on their secure link. They're requesting emergency extraction for key personnel, but local flight restrictions just went into effect due to unusual weather patterns. Through her scope, Emma watched Colonel Drake's growing desperation as his sophisticated operation faced systematic dismantling. Each attempt to restore their systems encountered new complications that seemed entirely coincidental to anyone investigating. Their security teams are losing cohesion, Tyler reported. Standard tactical protocols breaking down. As they face multiple simultaneous failures they can't effectively counter. Emma's tactical mind processed these developments as she coordinated the community's continued response. The syndicate had created something sophisticated, protected by layers of security and classified technology. Now they were learning that sometimes the most effective resistance comes not from direct confrontation, but from understanding exactly how complex systems can be methodically taken apart through the simplest actions. The morning sun climbed higher over Pleasant Valley as Emma watched more syndicate teams rush between failing systems. They had brought military expertise and government backing, confident their superior resources guaranteed success. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who understand that sophisticated operations become most vulnerable when facing threats they can't effectively identify or counter without compromising their own secrecy. As morning light spread across Pleasant Valley, the true scope of the syndicate's operation began to emerge. Emma watched through her thermal scope as specialized teams rushed to secure not just research materials, but evidence of something far more concerning. "Found their complete project files," Tyler reported, his voice tense. "Pleasant Valley isn't just one facility. It's the control center for a nationwide network. They're building similar installations in agricultural communities across the country." Sarah's brother appeared on their secure link, his face showing real concern. "Just intercepted their emergency protocols. These aren't just research facilities. They're distribution hubs. They're creating an infrastructure to spread whatever they're developing." Emma felt their baby kick as she processed these revelations. The syndicate's operation went far beyond their valley. They were establishing a sophisticated network using rural communities as cover for something unprecedented. "Got their territorial expansion maps," Martha Reynolds announced, spreading documents across the command center table. "They're targeting specific agricultural regions, all with similar characteristics to Pleasant Valley. Underground infrastructure, isolated locations, minimal oversight." Through her scope, Emma tracked more government-grade vehicles arriving. Each new team revealed another layer of their true operation. Not just research and development, but preparation for large-scale deployment. Their experimental compounds aren't just performance enhancers, Dr. Wong reported, analyzing recovered data. They're creating something that can be distributed through agricultural products, using legitimate farming operations to deliver unauthorized substances. Michael studied the technical specifications with a growing alarm. These aren't just storage facilities they're building. They're designed for mass production and distribution, using farming communities as unwitting delivery systems. Emma's Olympic experience with analyzing complex situations proved crucial as she processed these developments. The syndicate hadn't chosen Pleasant Valley randomly. They were establishing a prototype for something meant to affect entire populations. "Found their command structure," Pete reported, decoding intercepted communications. "Colonel Drake isn't just running this facility. He's coordinating similar operations in multiple states, building a network that can bypass normal regulatory oversight." Through her thermal scope, Emma watched more specialized teams deploy around the valley. The syndicate's operation showed sophisticated planning that went far beyond one rural community. "Got their timeline," Tyler announced grimly. "They're not just testing distribution methods here. Once their system is established, they plan to implement similar operations across agricultural regions nationwide." Sarah's veterinary knowledge provided crucial insight as she analyzed their research data. These compounds they're developing, they're designed to accumulate in the food supply, creating long-term effects that would be nearly impossible to trace. Emma's tactical mind connected patterns others might miss. The syndicate wasn't just hiding classified research in rural areas. They were creating an infrastructure that could affect entire populations without their knowledge. Their security protocols just shifted, Pete warned. They're implementing something called Phase 2, which looks like nationwide deployment preparations. Through her scope, Emma tracked more government-grade equipment arriving. Each new element revealed another aspect of their true operation. A sophisticated plan to use America's farmland for unauthorized distribution of experimental compounds. Local agricultural testing shows contamination already spreading, Dr. Wong reported, "They're not just preparing for future deployment, they're already conducting preliminary trials using unsuspecting communities." Colonel Drake's voice carried cold determination as he coordinated with his teams. The syndicate's operation faced local disruption, but their larger network continued expanding across rural America. "Found their facility designs," Tyler added. "Every installation is built to the same specifications. Once they perfect their system here, they can replicate it anywhere with similar agricultural infrastructure." Emma felt their baby kick as she processed these revelations. The syndicate had created something far more dangerous than a hidden research facility. They were establishing a network that could bypass normal safety protocols and regulatory oversight. "Their distribution plans are sophisticated," Martha reported, analyzing recovered documents. Using legitimate agricultural shipments as cover, they could spread their compounds across entire regions without detection. Through her thermal scope, Emma watched more specialized teams secure the facility. The syndicate's operation showed planning that went far beyond criminal enterprise. They were creating infrastructure for unauthorized human experimentation on a massive scale. "Got their research objectives," Sarah's brother reported through, "and their secure link. They're not just developing performance enhancers, they're creating compounds that can influence human behavior, testing methods to control populations through modified food supplies." Michael's farming experience revealed another layer of concern. These distribution methods they're planning, they could contaminate entire crop systems, create effects that spread through normal agricultural networks. Emma's tactical mind saw the larger threat. Pleasant Valley's resistance had disrupted their local operation, but the syndicate's broader network continued growing. Each new facility they established brought them closer to implementing their true plan. "Their emergency protocols are interesting," Pete noted. "They're not just protecting research data, they're securing evidence of government connections. This goes higher than Colonel Drake." Through her scope, Emma tracked more teams arriving with specialized containment equipment. The syndicate had created something that threatened not just Pleasant Valley, but every farming community in America. "Found their selection criteria," Tyler reported. "They're targeting agricultural regions with specific characteristics. Isolated locations, minimal oversight, established distribution networks, everything they need to hide unauthorized testing programs." Dr. Wong analyzed more technical data with growing concern. "These compounds they're developing, they're designed for gradual absorption through normal food consumption. Effects would be nearly impossible to detect until fully implemented." Emma watched more government-grade vehicles arrive as morning light filled the valley. The syndicate had brought sophisticated planning and classified backing to Pleasant Valley, confident their operation was secure. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who understand that exposing the truth can be more powerful than any tactical operation. Because Emma's Olympic experience had taught her something crucial about high-pressure situations. Sometimes victory comes not from defeating your opponent directly, but from revealing their true nature to those they seek to deceive. The morning sun climbed higher as Emma coordinated with her growing network of allies. The syndicate had created something sophisticated, using rural isolation to hide unauthorized experimentation. They were about to learn that sometimes the most effective resistance comes not from matching force with force, but from understanding exactly how to expose operations that depend on secrecy for their success. Emma surveyed the shifting dynamics through her scope, her mind racing to align the pieces of the puzzle. The syndicate's operation was vast, deeply entrenched, and deceptively simple. Every disruption, every complication had been orchestrated by the very people they were now relying on, the local community. What they had done was more than a strategy. It was a masterstroke of counterintelligence, an intricate web of seemingly innocent activities that were, in fact, the syndicate's worst nightmare. "We've got a problem," Sarah's brother's voice crackled over the secure channel. "Intercepted new orders from Colonel Drake. He's pulling the research teams into a more centralized, controlled zone. They're trying to limit the damage, but they're expecting a major escalation." Emma's pulse quickened. The syndicate knew something was coming, but they didn't yet understand what. "We've triggered their reaction time," Emma muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "This is it, the point where their confidence in their systems starts to break down." The sun was fully above the horizon now, casting long shadows across the valley. The community of Pleasant Valley, which had only days ago been unaware of the covert war unfolding in their midst, was now the front line of resistance. "Good news and bad news," Tyler's voice cut through her thoughts. "The good news? They're pulling all non-essential personnel into secured zones. The bad news? They're shifting resources to Phase 2 of their operation. That's the nationwide deployment, and if they're not careful, they'll expose everything." "Doctor," Wong's calm voice followed, "we need to move fast. These compounds, they're not just about control anymore. The longer they have the infrastructure in place, the more dangerous the widespread effects could be. This isn't just testing anymore. This is scaling up." Emma turned to the map on the command table. She studied it intently, her finger tracing the planned expansion paths, the agricultural hubs, the isolated installations. Each node was connected to a larger, insidious web. Their strategy of mass distribution was designed to be subtle, nearly undetectable, with every move hidden behind layers of legitimate farming operations. But she knew they couldn't operate like that forever. At some point, their secrecy would crack, and she was determined to make it happen sooner rather than later. "Tyler, I need every bit of intel on their emergency response teams. We're going to force their hand," Emma ordered, her tone decisive. "On it," Tyler replied without hesitation. As her eyes swept across the valley, Emma couldn't help but feel the weight of what they were doing. The community had been instrumental in exposing the syndicate's vulnerabilities. Now they had to push forward, revealing the truth to the world before it was too late. "Sarah," Emma said softly, "we need to take down their distribution channels for good." Sarah, always quick to process, understood immediately. "I've been tracking their shipping patterns. They're already moving products from the central facility. I can get our people on the ground to intercept shipments, make it look like just another routine failure." "Do it," Emma urged, "and let's give them something they can't ignore." The calm, strategic demeanor that had served Emma throughout her Olympic career surged to the forefront now. She wasn't just managing the operation anymore, she was directing a high-stakes battle of wits. The syndicate had underestimated the depth of knowledge, ingenuity, and resourcefulness of the people they had considered pawns. The community, though isolated, had proven to be the syndicate's greatest enemy, not through brute force, but through insight and the ability to see through the very systems that had been constructed to hide their operation. As she prepared to make her final move, Emma's eyes lingered on the valley. The sounds of everyday life, tractor engines, children playing in the distance, the hum of community, were the perfect camouflage. The syndicate had used the valley's simplicity to conceal their grand design, but it was the same simplicity that would now expose them. "Once we hit their distribution network, there won't be a way to cover it up," Emma said to the team. "We're going to make sure their secrets don't just stay hidden in the shadows." Tyler, Sarah, Pete, Michael, and Dr. Wong all nodded. The pieces were in place. It was time to turn the spotlight on the syndicate and let the world see the operation for what it truly was. No more shadows, no more hidden agendas. The truth would be out, and the systems built on secrecy would crumble under the weight of transparency. As Emma gazed through her scope one last time, she saw the signs of movement. Syndicate teams responding to the unexpected failures, scrambling, to restore order. But it was already too late. Their carefully constructed facade was about to be torn apart, piece by piece. And Emma knew, as the light of morning bathed the valley in its warmth, that this was just the beginning. Emma steadied, her breath, her heart sinking with the rhythm of the valley below. The day had come for the syndicate to face the consequences of their overconfidence. They had spent years building an intricate system, thinking that no one would ever understand its weaknesses. But they had underestimated one crucial element: an entire community that knew how to see through the noise. "We're ready," Sarah said, her voice steady. "The first shipment's on its way. Our teams are in position." Emma's mind raced with the enormity of what they were about to do. It wasn't just about taking down a criminal operation anymore. This was about undoing a network of control that spanned beyond just one community. They had uncovered the syndicates. In game, a nationwide infrastructure of secrecy and manipulation. The entire country was at risk if they didn't act now. But first, they had to strike at the heart of the operation, the distribution system. The syndicate's network depended on a steady, seamless flow of compounds disguised within agricultural shipments. Their carefully curated distribution hubs acted as gateways to spread the experimental substances. Emma's team had been working around the clock to intercept these shipments and create enough chaos to expose the entire operation. Through her scope, Emma watched the first convoy of syndicate vehicles moving along a remote road. The community's decoys had been set, and as expected, they were falling into the trap. Sarah's intercepted supply line would lead them straight into the heart of the trap. "On your mark," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. "Mark," Sarah replied with quiet confidence. With a signal, the valley erupted in a series of coordinated actions. Trucks that appeared to be normal agricultural supply carriers suddenly diverted, steered by Emma's team and local farmers in precise formations. The ruse was flawless. The syndicate's own supply chain was now their undoing. "Got them," Tyler reported with a sharp edge to his voice. "They're scrambling. The convoy's rerouted. They don't know where their shipments are anymore. They're panicking." Emma watched the chaos unfold with a quiet satisfaction. This was it. The syndicate had built their operation like a house of cards, each layer dependent on the next to stay intact. Now one card had fallen, and with it the whole structure was beginning to wobble. But there was more to do. The disruption wasn't just about shifting shipments, it was about exposing their entire method of operation. The syndicate needed to be forced to reveal themselves. Every misstep, every new move, would drive them further into the light. "We've set up the communications network," Dr. Wong's voice came through her earpiece. "I've isolated their command frequency. We can broadcast directly into their communications. It's time to make sure they can't hide anymore." Emma's grip tightened on her rifle as she surveyed the valley again. They had planned for this moment, every angle accounted for, every contingency. But it wasn't just about the operation, it was about forcing the world to recognize the truth. "We need to make this public." "Immediately," Emma said, her words clear and determined. "There are lives at stake and we can't let them slip away without a fight." Pete was already working on the tech side, intercepting feeds, ensuring that the syndicate's encrypted signals were exposed. "I'm alive. We're broadcasting now. Every network they use to coordinate is being mirrored to public systems. The walls of secrecy the syndicate had so carefully constructed were crumbling faster than they could recover from each failure. The traps had been set to ensure that the truth would bleed out. By the time their command structure realized what was happening, it would be too late. "I've got eyes on the central facility," Tyler reported. "It's chaos in there. Colonel Drake is personally coordinating damage control, but they've lost contact with half their operational centers." "Keep them distracted," Emma urged. "Let's make sure they think they can still recover. This needs to hurt them more than they expect." Emma's eyes flicked to the sky. A new batch of syndicate teams had mobilized, their vehicles streaking through the valley toward the most vulnerable spots in their network. But they didn't know that every move they made now was a calculated part of the larger strategy, exposing their weaknesses, amplifying their failures. Their central servers are fried, Dr. Wong reported, almost amused. They're blind, running on old data, and their field agents are getting conflicting orders. They'll be forced to self-destruct before they can pull this off. Sarah's voice came through calm, but filled with intensity. The first shipment has already been compromised. The second convoy was diverted into an ambush. The syndicate won't be able to trace this back. They've lost control of the main distribution route. The tension that had built in Emma's chest loosened slightly. They were almost there. The syndicate's ability to move its product across state lines was key to their operation. Without it, they would be crippled, unable to launch their deployment, and the evidence was mounting layer by layer until it could no longer be ignored. Dr. Wong added, "This is the tipping point. If they don't cut their losses and pull back soon, they'll expose everything." Emma's eyes moved to the horizon as she processed the coming steps. The syndicate had reached the moment where their failure was inevitable. They had underestimated the local network, underestimated the people of Pleasant Valley, and most of all, underestimated Emma and her team. Their sophisticated operation had crumbled under the weight of simplicity. It was clear now. They had beaten the syndicate not through brute force, but by understanding their weaknesses and exposing them. Every system had a flaw. Every hidden agenda had a breaking point. "Broadcast complete," Pete reported. "The world is watching." Emma nodded, feeling a rush of adrenaline mixed with deep relief. The fight wasn't over, not yet. But the first wave of their operation had succeeded. The truth was out in the open, and there was no going back for the syndicate now. They could run, they could hide, but their secrets were exposed, and the consequences would be far-reaching. "All teams report in." "Let's finish this," Emma ordered, her voice steady but fierce. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the valley, Emma felt the full weight of what they had accomplished. It wasn't just a victory, it was a turning point in a much larger battle. The syndicate had thought they could control the narrative, control the people. But now, the people controlled the truth, and the truth would never be silenced again. Emma stood at the command center, watching as the final pieces of the syndicate's carefully built network began to crumble. The first wave of revelations had been successful. Global attention was now focused on their operation, and the damage was starting to spread. But the weight of it all was settling in, and Emma knew they were far from finished. The truth was out, but the syndicate still held some powerful cards. They had resources, they had government connections. They wouldn't go down without a fight. "All units in position." Tyler's voice came through, calm but edged with anticipation. "We're ready to move to the central facility." Emma's eyes flicked to the map, tracing the route of the incoming syndicate forces. Colonel Drake and his team were scrambling to regain control, mobilizing what was left of their military-grade personnel. But it was clear. This was no longer a battle of firepower. It was a battle of perception, and the syndicate had already lost the advantage. "We keep the pressure up," Emma said, her voice firm. "We expose every weak point. No one walks away." With their dignity intact, Sarah's voice came in next, with the same steady confidence that had guided them through each stage. "The second convoy's been intercepted. They tried to reroute, but the trap's already set. We've got every exit covered." "Keep them off balance," Emma urged, scanning the horizon through her scope. "Make them think they have options. The more they spread out, the more mistakes they'll make." Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.